Okay, so the problem with Assassin's Creed. Now, usually on this channel, I do discussions about story, themes, um, uh, how well something is done, or how bad it's done. Basically, critical views on works, be they video games, TV shows, movies, etc. And this discussion is going to be a little different. It's going to be a lot shorter because I'm not going to be taking necessarily a critical stance. I will be critical, but I'm not going to be judging the Assassin's Creed games one by one, trying to review them or anything like that. And nor will I be discussing things like story or characters or gameplay elements in any great detail. If I do, it'll only be very briefly to illustrate my points. What I do want to talk about is something that I've noticed being a fan of Assassin's Creed since the first game released, and something that I see it's a pattern. It is an issue, a problem that I think is plaguing Assassin's Creed, keeping it from reaching its full potential, and it's also plaguing the entire video game industry at the moment. Something that's very indicative of a larger, more severe problem that is something that maybe should be addressed, or maybe we need to be more cognizant of it. So I guess we'll start off from the beginning, where this problem where it really kind of found its roots, which was in the first Assassin's Creed game. Now, I believe the first Assassin's Creed game is the best one in the series, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was repetitive. Yes, people called it repetitive, but it was enjoyable. I liked what was there, how you could eavesdrop, you could snoop around, you could investigate your targets, in say Jerusalem or Acre or Syria, in Damascus, right? In Damascus. And so you would go around these cities, 1191 AD. You would investigate your targets, and then you would go after your targets, and you would assassinate them. You were an assassin. It was Assassin's Creed. You were assassinating people, and that was the crux of the game. And people called it very repetitive because you would do the same several investigation missions, and then you would hit directly into the assassination mission. And the assassination missions were always pretty similar, whereas you would do a little parkour, you'd take out some guards, and then you would kill the guy, or you would screw up and end up in a giant brawl where you'd counter and kill 50 guards, in a row before killing the main target. Anyway, so yeah, it wasn't perfect. And there were eight assassinations. There was a ninth final boss. And so it was repetitive. I can see the point, and I'm not arguing that point. It was very repetitive. Now, I enjoyed it because I just enjoyed the gameplay. You didn't have a lot of options in terms of how you could assassinate your targets, but there was variety, and you could mix and match. And if you wanted to go in there guns blazing, or should I say sword swinging, you could do that. If you didn't want to, you didn't have to, and you had options. And that was Assassin's Creed. Now, I also enjoyed the modern day story a lot. I thought it was very interesting, the kind of how the game was taking from modern conspiracies, from the rich global lore we have, from all different cultures, from different time periods. I mean, it was bringing together all these things, all these conspiracy theories, all of these all of this knowledge and rich lore about the supernatural, the extraterrestrial, and spinning it together to create a tapestry. And I thought that was really interesting. Anyways, but that was back in 2007, right, when the first game released. So anyway, Assassin's Creed sells very well, but people are critical of it. They say, oh, it's extremely repetitive. So Ubisoft says, okay, we'll make Assassin's Creed 2. And so they make Assassin's Creed 2, and Assassin's Creed 2 suddenly opens up. It's incredibly open. You're in 1400s in Italy, and now it's almost like Grand Theft Auto, right, in the Renaissance, where you have a giant open world that you can explore. You have giant cities, you have large areas. You can go around, you can customize your home base, you can use all these different things to kill people, poison, different swords, all this. There's an economy system. You can ride horses. You can do all sorts of different things in Assassin's Creed 2. And there's still variety. I mean, but one of the things that's different from the first game is that instead of doing these investigation missions, you have much more linear missions where you tag, where you follow people, and or you eavesdrop, or you take a package, or you walk with people and you hear these scripted dialogues that basically serve as exposition, etc. You do very kind of linear missions to get to the target, and then you quickly kill the target. And all of the targets, I don't know, I think there's definitely over 10, but probably less than 20. There are a lot of targets in the game, almost double that of the first game, and they're all underdeveloped compared to the first game, of course, because there's so many of them. And that's part of my point that I'm getting to. So anyway, Assassin's Creed 2 opens the game up, right? But it still gives you some options. It still feels like your main crux is assassinating people. Then Brotherhood comes out, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Now at this point, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was the sign to a lot of people that Ubisoft was starting to milk the series. Assassin's Creed 2 was not a yearly release after Assassin's Creed 1. It came out like 2 or 3 years later. I believe it was 2 years later. Brotherhood comes out a year later from Assassin's Creed 2. Literally a year later. And people are rightly suspicious that Ubisoft is trying to milk the series. It seems that way. Now, they say, Assassin's Creed 3, we're making Assassin's Creed 3. We're just using assets that we weren't able to use in Assassin's Creed 2 to make this game. Okay, fine, whatever. So they pump out a Brotherhood, and Brotherhood's there, and okay, we're playing as Ezio again. We're in Rome, alright, chill with this. It was a fun game. It was a good game. It was well made. In fact, people will probably argue that from a purely gameplay perspective, it's probably the best one out of the series. Anyway, that said, what do you do most of the time with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood? Where are most of those gameplay hours spent? And there's side content. It's side content. What are the assassinations in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood? There's maybe 2 or 3 of them. 2 of them are heavily scripted, where you're just going from point A to point B, take out a few guards along the way, and then you take out the target. Very little variety, especially with those blasted perfect synchro options in the corner of the screen demanding that you play a certain way, and if you don't, you get this ugly red X. Okay, so on Brotherhood, yeah. So anyway, okay, that aside, what is the focus in the game when it comes to Brotherhood? And Brotherhood focuses much, much more on the side content, on the optional content, on renovating Rome, on recruiting assassins and building them up through that micromanagement little mini game, which is fun, admittedly, and doing all these other things, doing all these other side missions and side content, delivering letters and doing races, etc., 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 etc. And you do so little assassinating the game, it's hard. You almost don't realize it when you're playing the game because you're so caught up in all the side content. Now, let's look at the pattern so far. The first game, Assassin's Creed, was almost all about the assassinations. It was criticized as being very repetitive. When we do Assassin's Creed 2, we open up the game quite a bit, but we put in a lot of different assassinations. There are a lot of them. None of them are very meaningful or substantial, and none of them have the nuance or the depth that the assassinations of the first game did. We move to Brotherhood, where we have fewer assassinations than the first game. Maybe even a max of 4. I don't remember very well, but I'm thinking it was up at most 4, at least 2 or 3. And they're all extremely insubstantial. They're all just paper thin almost. Then we go to Assassin's Creed Revelations, which comes out a year later. Now at this point, Assassin's Creed Revelations is pretty indicative that Ubisoft is milking the series for all it's worth, and it sells like hotcakes. And you can blame me, I guess. Well, why are you complaining about it if you bought the games? I'll be honest with you, though. Revelations was the first one I bought with a gift card that I got around that time, around Christmas time, and I spent that money because I wasn't going to pay $60 for Revelations. And it's the same thing I did with Assassin's Creed 3, which I got for an Amazon Gold box still for like $30. So point being, I didn't pay full price. I may have got these games around the time of their release, but I wasn't paying full price for them. Now you can say, oh, you're still supporting the trend, but look, I manage my money, and my point is that I am aware of what Ubisoft is doing, and I wasn't going to necessarily spend my money on those games when I'm aware of what they're doing. That aside, Assassin's Creed Revelations comes out, and notice very quickly that it has all the problems of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but none of the strengths of it. Basically, I think the first thing I did was I opened up the map to look to like see the map. Where are my optional objectives, and the entire map, like literally the area, the geographic area that you're in, Constantinople, was covered from one end to the other with little icons, each of them representing a different side mission or different thing to do. It was the most overwhelming, nerve-wracking thing I've ever seen in my life. No, that's an exaggeration, obviously, but you get my point. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic to a degree, but at the same time, you can play Revelations. You can start a new game, you can open up the map, and you're blown away by the ridiculous amount of options of things you have to do. So, you're overwhelmed. What about the assassinations? I'm playing an Assassin's Creed game, aren't I? So you play the first one, the prologue, which it's okay, right? It's pretty scripted. I mean, there's a decent amount of hand holding, and then you play maybe 2 or 3 assassinations the rest of the game. It's a short game. Now, all of the rest of your time is spent doing side content, and this side content isn't that fun. The tower defense, the den defense, I should say, the bomb making, the even the crypts, the tombs, which are usually one of the highlights of these middle Assassin's Creed games. I mean, they were kind of underwhelming too. Like, there was just so much side content. It was all meaningless. None of it was much fun at all. It's just busy work, It's throwing everything but the kitchen, everything, probably including the kitchen sink at the game, to get away from this issue of variety, as if people are. Ubisoft is so afraid of being called repetitive or being criticized for not having enough variety that they just throw everything at the game, not caring if it's executed well or if it's even just fun. And this moves on to Assassin's Creed 3. Now, Assassin's Creed 3, for a lot of us, after Brotherhood and Revelations, we were thinking, this is going to be the game that's going to redeem the series, because this is like Assassin's Creed 3. This is the one that they were always going to make, right? It's going to be a step up. And in some ways it was, in a lot of ways it wasn't. Precisely because Assassin's Creed 3 has a lot of the same problems as Revelations. It is plagued by an insane amount of side content. Meaningless side content. A lot of side content that isn't fun. I don't want to play bar games in Assassin's Creed 3. When you go to a tavern and you get to play, checkers with somebody, why is that in the game? Why is it in the game? It makes no sense why that is in the game. Why do I want to collect almanac pages or feathers? You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a gluttony of side content, but none of it is that fun. I had the most fun in Assassin's Creed 3 when I was just running around exploring the frontier or the different towns. I mean, it looked gorgeous. But what you're doing in the game has so little impact, so little significance. It just isn't meaningful at all. The assassinations, they're extremely linear, extremely scripted, especially with the synchro options, which are even, can I say, even more restrictive than they were in Revelations and Brotherhood. It's just, it's ridiculous. I guess the point, press square to assassinate. I mean, it just, I wish I was exaggerating, but it's just ridiculous how much side content there is in these games that just isn't that fun. Then you think about probably one of the biggest offenders of this in Assassin's Creed 3, which is the naval combat. Why is naval combat in an Assassin's Creed game? Why? It seems almost completely unrelated to Assassin's Creed. You could remove the naval combat from the game, just have a fast travel option through a boat if you want to get to the places that are outside of the colonies, right? You could just have a fast travel option. You don't necessarily need to sail. You don't need the naval missions. You could remove that entire part of the game, and the rest of the game would probably be no different at all. Now, funnily enough, the naval combat, that aspect of the game has so much depth to it, which is surprising considering you're playing an Assassin's Creed game. Why are you have naval missions when you should be assassinating people, right? That's the game that I bought. That's the game that I'm expecting to play. But instead, I'm just shooting ships up. And it's pretty telling when you look at reviews on the naval combat section is praised so much. I mean, it gets the most praise out of anything in the game, and that is just ironic and kind of sad in a way. It's just it's weird. It's just strange, and I get why the games are like this. Why they have so much side content, too much side content, and none of it's much fun is because, again, because of the first game, Ubisoft is just afraid to lose any sales. They're afraid of any bad criticism, so they just put in everything. I mean, these games are churned out. Like, let's be honest with each other. These games are churned out. They're in development for several years with tons of teams. I mean, Assassin's Creed 4, it's common knowledge that it's being developed by like a number of different studios, and it's been in development for at least a couple of years now. I mean, or at least a year. I mean, after Assassin's Creed 3 came out, it was in development prior to that, and the next Assassin's Creed game is already in development. It's going to be released after Assassin's Creed 4. This is a series that isn't going to end anytime soon. They're being churned out. The story is, what can you expect besides bullshit cliffhangers at the end of each game, because the story is being strung out to match the number of games that are being released. So clearly, I mean, this isn't going to stop, and it's a pattern that I think it bears mentioning and bears acknowledging, which is these games are coming out, they're being churned out, but there's no passion in them, and there's this idea that maybe that quantity will replace quality, that we can just put in so many things into a game, and that's what makes it good. I don't know. Not if it's not done well. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have tons of content and expect any of it to necessarily be really good. You're spreading your resources too thin. And this is what I mean by by a problem that's plaguing the entire industry, is that we see games now that, to reach wider audiences, developers and publishers are trying to make their games as accessible as possible. This isn't a bad thing in and of itself, but it is a bad thing when you try too hard and you put in too many things to grab too many people, and none of these things are very good. They all end up being half-baked. Assassin's Creed 3 is a jack of all trades of a video game. You have tons of aspects of it. None of it is particularly remarkable. Could it be? Yes. If they stripped away some of the fat and tightened up some of the features that were already there. If all the resource time that went into the naval combat had gone to the rest of the game, man, can you imagine how much better Assassin's Creed 3 would be? It would probably be a lot better. But alas, you're not going to see that because Ubisoft is trying to reach as many consumers as possible to get the money. Assassin's Creed 4, it looks, I mean, they claim it's going to have more assassinations, they claim it's going to have more depth, but I don't know. The naval combat is almost like the main feature of the game. You're not playing Assassin's Creed. You're not playing an Assassin's Creed game anymore. You're playing a pirate game. Pirates. If I wanted to play a pirates game, I mean, I'm not going to Assassin's Creed to play a pirates game. I'm going to play an assassin to assassinate people, That's the game. I like the sneaking, I like the stealth, I like the investigation, I like the particular type of action the series provides. I'm not necessarily going into it to play as a pirate. And I guess my point is simply that these games are moving so far away from what the first game had, which was a very kind of, it had integrity to it. It was repetitive, but it knew what it wanted to be. And it focused on that, and it delivered a very concentrated experience that was good when it was good. Repetitive, yes, but it was great. And each game has grown bigger and bigger and more bloated and lost a lot of that heart and integrity. And it's something that you see in a lot of video games now, where it's almost like in the mindset of the players, or people are almost like brainwashed to think that if a game doesn't have tons of features and tons of customization and tons of variables and variety and choices, that it's bad. Automatically it's bad. That's just not the case. I mentioned in my Bioshock Infinite discussion a lot The Last of Us, which I praised, and I'm going to praise it again because The Last of Us kind of flies in the face of all these conventions that we suddenly have, and now it delivers a very concentrated, focused experience that is linear, that doesn't give you many choices beyond what you customize, what you use, but damn, is it well done, and damn, does it deserve all the praise it gets, precisely because it delivers a particular experience and does it very, 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 very well. It knows what it wants to be, and it does that, no more, no less. And Assassin's Creed could probably bear to learn a lesson from that, especially moving forward. I mean, if you want to deliver Grand Theft Auto in particular time periods, be my guest, but the games aren't going to be excellent. They might sell, but I think after a while, people are gonna get tired of this. It's already happening. And I guarantee you, I'm not gonna buy Assassin's Creed 4 for at full price. You know, unless I have a gift card again, or some other method to cut the price down. But I'm not gonna pay $60 for that game when I can already tell you what I'm gonna get from it, which is another bullshit cliffhanger and some more kind of meaningless filler gameplay, busy work, because that's what Ubisoft apparently thinks is fun. You know, not to say that a lot of it is necessarily the developers' fault. I mean, they're getting orders from the executives. I mean, I get it. I understand why. To make money, I get it. It makes sense. I understand why they're doing it. But I think to make a better game, it's just a shame to see what the series has become and what's happened to its potential. Assassin's Creed 1, had it gone in a different direction, could have produced a really good set of games. And it's a shame to see that just kind of fall to the wayside. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Maybe a little controversial, but I think there's a lot of truth in there, and I'm being just brutally honest with you. So if you have any feedback or any thoughts of your own, please leave a comment, and maybe we can get a discussion going here. Thanks.